Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be here at the City Club. And, you know, you don't often hear Paul referred to as Governor Green. But in fact, that's an accurate appellation because Paul is one of the governors of the City Club of Chicago, as is Joyce Saxon right here, and there might be other governors here with us today. And so the people who run the City Club with the support and the guidance and leadership of Jay Doherty are called governors. And that's one of those strange traditions that started back when Tom got us going in 1903. Well, this isn't particularly well known, but there are actually 2 or 3 Republicans who are governors of the City Club. And, you know, we have a nice kind of caucus meeting in the back phone booth over here every once in a while, and we like to talk about what it is to be a Republican. And every once in a while, when we have a Republican speaker, well, you know, you can tell from the photos up here, it's not a frequent event around here, but the Republican governors sometimes get trotted out to say nice things about the Republican speaker who is going to address the City Club. And so this morning, thanks to Jay and Paul, the fickle finger of fate fell upon yours truly. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. Now, it's been a while since I've addressed the club. I want to say we celebrate every form of civic involvement here. And we've got every kind of person who's involved in public affairs appearing before the City Club in one of our 40 or 50 programs per year. And this morning we're going to hear from, I think, one of the very most special types of involved people, citizen legislator. Frank Watson has been in the legislature since about 1978. He started as a state representative, and now he's a state senator. Along the way, based on his educational background at Purdue and becoming a registered pharmacist and serving the people of his community in a 100-year-old pharmacy down on the square in beautiful Greenville. If you haven't been there, make a point of it. There's a lovely college. You're going to absolutely love the place. You might want to buy a place down there. You might even want to buy a pharmacy. But Frank's pharmacy has just sold. His roots as a registered pharmacist, as a small businessman, as a lifelong member of that community, led him into public service. And he developed an enormous interest in education. We've talked about school reform in Chicago from this platform for years. And Frank Watson is one of the people who was decisive to the school reform movement in the legislature. We also think there's a big difference between downstate and Chicago. I want to tell you, Frank Watson provided the key vote to make Soldier Field what it is today. His colleagues recognized Frank by elevating him to the leadership of the Republican caucus in the Illinois Senate. And that's why we await his words with great anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Watson.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here at the City Club. If I'd known Paul Green was involved, I would not be here. Not really. Yeah, that's right. Well, we're supposed to have a good time here. That's what I was told. Jay says we're going to have a good time. That's what I like to do. It bothers me that this is going to be recorded and not edited, Marty. I talked to Marty a minute ago about how, are you going to edit this thing? Nope, it goes out everywhere, all over. That's a problem, and I understand there's media here. That's a problem, but I usually am very candid about what I have to say. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit, open up the questions, and that's generally when the most informed part of the program is anyway, when you ask your own questions that you have an interest in. Glad that you introduced Senator Pam Altoff. Please stand again, Pam. Part of our caucus in Springfield. Kirk Dillard from DuPage County. Kirk, part of my leadership team in Springfield. Matt Murphy from Palatine. Please stand, Matt. Good man. Good. Thank you. And Laura Bartell. Where's Laura? Right over here at this table. Laura is running for state representative in the 66th District, Mount Prospect area, Carolyn Krause's old seat. So we're glad to have them with us here today. My wife, Susan. Please welcome her. When was the last time you went to a movie where people clapped when it was over. We went to one last night. August Rush. If you haven't seen it, you ought to go see it. It's a wonderful movie, and I was stunned when it was over. People clapped, and anyway, we've had a wonderful time while we've been in Chicago. We got here Thursday. We had an event Thursday night. Didn't do so well Saturday. We went to the basketball game. U of I got beat, but we've had a great time. Went to Jersey Boys. Another thing to put on your calendar of things to do. Jersey Boys. It's a fabulous music. Going next weekend, Paul. Will you? No, we don't see these in Greenville. No. Greenville is a town of about, well, if you count the inmates, which we do, we count them because it helps with us. If you count the inmates, we're about 7,000 people. About 1,200 of them are inmates. And we're a small town about 50 miles east of St. Louis on Interstate 70. I usually tell a group like this that we're so far south that I'm a Cardinal fan. I hate to admit that, I guess, to these people. Yeah, Stella Black, very good, Stella, thank you. There's a few of us around here. Anyway, our son works for the Rams, and we go to Rams games, Cardinal games, Blues games, so we're very loyal to the St. Louis metropolitan area and have been, grown up, both Susan and I have. And Susan, by the way, is a trustee at Greenville College, which Chris mentioned. Yeah, Greenville College. Since she's interested in checks, just as we are, we're not in a state facility here, so are we? I can say anything I want about campaigns, raising money, things of that. All right. Anyway, Susan's very interested in Greenville College, as I am. It's a wonderful small school, Christian school there, about 1,000 students. They do great work, and Susan's been a part of that for about 3 years now. Susan? 4, going on 4. Anyway, talk a little bit about what's going on, and I appreciate, Chris, I don't have to go through my background as a pharmacist. Yes, 1881. I'm a fourth-generation pharmacist. Our drugstore, same location in 1881. South side of the square in Greenville. It is a wonderful place. Come on down, spend a little money with us, and we'd welcome that. But I did sell the store last January to the gentleman who's running it, and our 2 kids, neither one were interested in pharmacy, and I got involved in politics in 1978, and so I kind of necessarily wasn't that interested in it either. So best thing I ever did was get out of the store and get the guy in that managed it, and it went very well from there. So we did well on both ends of that. But anyway, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what is going on, and maybe it'd be better if you told me, because I mean it is incredible. I mean you have to be there to believe it. It is a very, very dysfunctional system that we find ourselves in. We go in the second Wednesday of January is when we go into session. We adjourn May 31st. Now, you all have heard the stories of turning back the clock and all this, and things come to a halt. Well, here it is, December 10th. December 10th. We're still in session. This has never happened as far as in the history of the state. We are still in session. Generally, we'd get out, if it hadn't May 31st, well, we'd get out sometime in June. Very dysfunctional. And in fact, in light of the fact that the Democrats control everything, that's what makes it so remarkable is, Rod Blagojevich, the governor, Speaker Mike Madigan, President Emil Jones, you'd think they'd all be walking lockstep down the path of getting things done, and that's not what's happened. And it's total gridlock. And the irony of it all is the total lack of trust that goes on. And that's been brought about primarily because of the administration. And we've had problems with them. Many people have had problems with them, and that is a real problem in Springfield when the trust isn't there. That's all you have when you go into the business of politics. You got your word, your handshake. You do what you say you'll do. That's not what's happening, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And that if they won't even be in the same room together. Tom Cross and I, and Tom will be here, I see, next month. We've been literally shuttling back and forth between Emil Jones and the governor and Speaker Mike Madigan because they will not, and even if they're in the room for any length of time, it's a very short meeting, very short meeting. So we were out at the, 13th Ward yesterday. Yesterday morning, went out, met with the speaker, Tom Cross and I, about the whole issue of what we're trying to get done. And then we'll probably have meetings or calls or whatever from the other side. It's just incredible. It is a very sad situation. And of course, the issues, as you know, what they are. They're mass transit, capital, which is an infrastructure bill, and then, of course, gaming, which would fund the the infrastructure. So that's what we've been talking about. Now, we in the Senate Republican Caucus, and I'll let my members even speak for themselves, but we are supporters of mass transit. We understand what that means to the economic viability of the region, families, businesses, whatever it might be. We understand that, and we're willing to be there and support it when we can. And Chris, you're right. I was there for the Soldier Field. I like it better from the inside than I do from the out, but it's a great place, football venue. I was there for United Center, Chicago modernization, or the O'Hare modernization of the airport here. I supported that because as I said, I'm from 250 miles south of here, but I understand the importance. I think I understand the importance of what Chicago means to this state. One of the state senators said if Chicago wasn't in Illinois, we'd be Iowa. And that isn't a bad analogy. So we understand it, and we want to work with this mayor, as we have. We want to work with all the people of this region to make it a viable place to live, work, and raise a family. Now, the problem is the CTA, RTA, capital. We focus on the CTA more than anything else because 80% of the problem, 80% of the $400 million that's being asked for from the state is going to the CTA. And we think that's where the focus of the problem is, and that's where we ought to direct our attention in the area of reforms and revisions and changes. And Chris also mentioned my involvement in the Chicago school reform, and I'm not going to go where I maybe could go on that issue because of where I live, but something needed to be done in the area of Chicago school reform, and I'm going to make a political statement here. One Democrat in the whole House and Senate, one Democrat, Judy Irwin, which I think is maybe a member of this group, she's the only one who voted for Chicago school reform. Now, a lot of people are pounding their chests right now out there thinking about what a wonderful thing it was and what it's doing, and that's great because it is making a difference. It's giving kids an opportunity, a chance, and that's all we were about. We wanted to see kids get an opportunity to be educated in an environment that would be conducive for job possibilities and potential. And we came together. We took on a lot of people. Not a lot of folks were on our side on this, but it was the right thing to do, and we did it. And we're doing it's the same attitude we're taking towards the mass transit. There's some change. There has to be some changes here. Has to be some changes. And I personally believe that the writers and the systems need to be part of the solution. People that utilize the system and those people who work for it all should be a part of the solution. The Auditor General's report was not very complimentary of the CTA. You probably haven't read it. Most elected officials haven't read it, but it's not exactly, it's nighttime reading. It'll put you to sleep, but you need to read it to get an idea of what's going on. The historical mismanagement, the benefits that are available to people who work for the CTA. Are you aware of this? If you work 3 years for the CTA, turn 55, you get a pension, albeit probably not very much, but you get health care for the rest of your life for 3 years. No, is there a system in the country? No, there is not. That's something that was pointed out by the Auditor General. These are the kinds of things that need to change and that we want to be a part of. And we stand on some principles that guide us in this issue, and we're going to be very, very stringent about it, and it's going to be contentious. I'm sure it is. We've talked about now, what is the answer, raising sales tax? I'm not so sure that it is. I don't know. But right now, when you look at what the city has done, and you look at what the county has done in taxes, I'm not sure that's a conducive environment for growth when you do that. I mean, that's what we're about as Republicans. We're about trying to advance the attitude and philosophy that's conducive for job growth and job creation. That's what we want to see. People say, oh, you're just nothing about big business. Well, no, we're not. We're about the job climate, about the business climate, but that's the job climate, and that's an opportunity for people. We want to create opportunities, and you can't do it when you have a tax climate that's not conducive for job growth and job creation. Why should the writers be involved? Judy Irwin. Anyway, why should the riders be involved? That is not Judy Irvin. Pardon me. It is. You surely look like her. Yes, you do. Jill Zwick. I'm sorry, Jill. How are you? Yes, former Republican representative. Now I believe it. Now a Democrat, I believe. That's okay. That's all right. You're all right. I understand. That's okay. We're independent. All right. Well, you do look a little bit like Judy. I'm sorry. I just looked over there into your work. All right. Now I'm totally lost. Where am I? All right. This is where Marty comes in and supposed to edit this, you know. Anyway, why should the riders be involved in the solution? All right. First of all, gasoline prices, as we know, has just skyrocketed. All the other problems of transportation, of the escalating price. We went out to, as I said, drove out to the Speaker's office yesterday, came back, got to the Hilton about 3:30, parked the car in the garage. Natural thing to do. Went up to the room. Susan came back. We went to the movie. That's what it went to the movie last night, and got the car. We've been in there about 3.5 hours. I go out. The guy says, "I said, where do I get this validated?" "Oh, we don't validate it here. You just go over here and put your little thing in the machine, and it'll come out and tell you what you owe." So I go over, put it in, disappears, comes back out, $28. I said, "Well, there's got to be a mistake." So I go over to the guy at the podium over here, and I said, "Hey, tell me about this. What's this all about?" He said, just read the sign. Read the sign. So, yes, $28. I said, "But I'm staying here. Doesn't that count for something?" "Nope, $28 for 3.5 hours of parking." Now, that's incredible. And when you drive around, it's a break for $16 for the first 20 minutes or whatever. Anyway, parking is an issue. And it's a cost, a high cost. Okay, and it's continued to escalate. So people that I think we need to understand there needs to be a modest increase in fares. And I think we're for that. We think that they can be part of the solution. A modest increase would be 15%, would raise between $125 and $130 million, very, very significant. So we're for that. We think there needs to be reforms, maybe even giving the RTA board veto power over the budgets of the CTA and the Metra and PACE. So, maybe that's something that ought to be considered. And I know it's making people uncomfortable, I can tell, just by the way people are moving around right now. But that's what we believe. We think that they need to be part of the solution. Now, why? Okay, so where are we? In our caucus, we want a mass transit bill that's reasonable, solves the problem, long-term solution. But we also want a capital bill, and I think people lose sight of the capital side of this because in the capital bill, the one that passed the Senate, there was $425 million for mass transit, capital. And that created a $1.7 billion in federal money. If we don't have the 425, the 1.7 billion is left on the table and it stays out in Washington. Not responsible way to approach the process. Oh, that's $2.1 billion that could be made available for what would be considered capital for mass transit, trains, buses, repairs, whatever it might be. We think that's a reasonable part of the solution to the whole mass transit issue. When we talk about capital for us downstate, it's roads and bridges, school construction, universities, colleges, community colleges that are on need, state facilities, all in we haven't had a capital bill since 1999. So it's a very, very significant issue. The compromise that's been out there for mass transit, they've talked about shifting the sales tax on gasoline in the 6-county region into the RTA. We don't think that's a good idea at all because that's $400 million taken right out of the general revenue fund. That's one of the proposals that's out there. We call it a mirage. Takes $400 million out of the general revenue fund and sends it to the RTA with no backfill, no ability to backfill the loss of $400 million. So that to me is a problem, a concern. So I don't look at that as a viable solution. Gambling. I've never been really a big proponent of gambling. If you look back over my record, I don't think it's the way we should be solving problems in this state, but it's here now. And the question I always bring up to people, everyone knows who's the #1 state in the country for revenue from gaming, Nevada. Who's #2? Well, most people would say New Jersey, Louisiana, someplace else, but it's actually Indiana. And why is that? Over in the northwest part of the corner of Indiana, there's significant gaming opportunities. And they market it right downtown. People that come into the city and visit the city, buses come in, pick them up, take them over there. So what we're talking about is a casino in the city and an additional license which could be in the south suburbs or somewhere else, depending on what the gaming board wants to do. So we think it's not the best, but it's there. We have gaming. It's, like I said, not what would be our answer, but that's what we have before us. What's the status right now? Well, there's possibility of bills passing both the House and the Senate. I hope not. We've been working well with the Speaker of the House, Mike Madigan. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday with him out at the ward, as I mentioned, Tom Cross and I. Meeting very, very well. We'd like to see a bill originate in the House and come over to us in the Senate. There will be a press conference, I believe, today at 10 o'clock. And they will be talking, it'll be probably Bob Malero and Lou Lang, both state reps, Democrats from the region up here. And they will be talking about gambling as the possible funding source for a capital bill. There's no agreement yet on this, but we're working towards it, and there was some progress. And to me, my way of thinking, I feel that a capital bill and mass transit have to be solved together. That's just the way, and it may be just a very short window of opportunity that we have to do that. So that's it's been unbelievable working with the governor. I mean, his whole style baffles me. I don't understand it. I've had very candid conversations with him over my 6 years, 5 years, 5.5 years. It's just different kind of a process, and he's a different type of a governor than I've experienced in the years that I've been there. The in-party fighting, I just think, is just not acceptable, but that's the way it is, and we have to live with that. I believe in bipartisanship. Good public policy comes out of bipartisanship every time that we've had it. When we had Republicans in charge of one chamber or another, or a governor, and the Democrats were in charge of one chamber or the other, compromises reached, and good public policy generally comes from that. And as I said, Chicago and downstate working together, I think, is very, very important. We were able to stop the gross receipts tax. Talk about public policy nightmare. The tax policy stays important. I was at the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce event they had for Norm Bobbins when he got leaving LaSalle, and he got an award. And I'm working. We were down at Hilton, working the room and going around, and I meet two guys come over there. Hey, Senator, I want you to meet these two. They're from Indiana. So I go over there. How are you? I'm Frank Watson, state senator. They're from northern Indiana. One guy was from LaPorte, the economic development, and another guy was from a region of northern Indiana. And they thanked me. They said, "Oh, you're a state senator." I said, "Yes, I am." Well, they thanked me. "Well, thank you, Senator. You have done so much for us in Indiana." And I said, "You got to be kidding." And they said, "No. The tax policy in Illinois has done a great deal for those of us in Indiana. In fact, the first year of this administration, the taxes and fees they put on the trucking industry, we were the #1 trucking state in the country. We had more licenses in Illinois than any other state in the country. We're not any longer. Who is? Indiana. Tax policy makes a difference, Governor, and you need to understand that." And like I said, I've had pretty direct conversation with him about it, and it just doesn't seem to work. The payroll tax that he talked about, that's another one. And as I mentioned earlier, the jobs climate is so crucial to us that we want to see something done that will be meaningful for job creation and job growth. So our caucus is all about trying to protect the taxpayer. We aren't necessarily pro-business, we're pro-job, and we want to do something that's fiscally responsible. That's what I think our caucus is all about, and we're willing to work with anybody in that direction and take us down that path, because that's where we want to go. So with that, I would maybe open it up to Paul, and any questions you might have. Jill, I am so sorry about that.
All right, good morning, Illinois State Senator Watson. My name is Ronald Holt. I am a 17-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department, Specialized Unit of Organized Crime Division. I am also the president of Purpose Over Pain, which is a group of parents who have taken the high road to trying to effect change in that we've lost our children to senseless acts of gun violence, which is going on not just in Chicago, downstate as well in some of the urban communities and all across this country. I'm here with another member of Purpose Over Pain, Mrs. Pam Bosley. She also lost her son last year as he was coming out of church. He was a musician, a very talented one. My son, Blair Holt, was killed this year on a bus, May 10th, to a senseless act of gun violence. I've also spoken as a local school council member at the Board of Education for change as well, to try to convince CTA to do something different. But the one question I have to you, and I'm going to be very brief, sir, and it's not to put you on the spot, and I'll just preface it.
Yeah, it is. It's your,
I'll preface it with this statement. Before he was killed himself in 1968, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stated, "By our readiness to allow arms to be purchased at will and fired at whim, we have created an atmosphere in which violence and hatred have become popular pastimes." But my question to you, sir, is why is it so difficult for legislators to come together to create laws that will minimize the gun violence in urban communities?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your son, both your situations. I don't know how I would handle that myself, thinking of our own son. The hatred you mentioned, and I'm not a proponent of gun control. Let's just get that up front. I'm a Southern Illinois that believes in Second Amendment rights, and I think the people that know and that hunt and understand the weapons, I think they should not be impacted by anything that we do. I just want to make that clear. And unfortunately, they are in most of the times when we do these kinds of things. And that's generally the dividing of the issue, is how do you impact the inner city or where the problem is without having an impact on those people who are good, law-abiding citizens that have the guns for the right reasons. And that's the hunt or the sporting clays or whatever it might be. That's the whole problem with this, Ron. And it becomes a very divisive issue with us in Springfield because primarily the legislative branch of people from up here want some sort of control. They see it every day. Ceasefire, I went to one of their meetings and saw what those people were doing and the people that were involved in that, and it was very alarming to me to read about the violence. Decatur, I have Decatur in my district, another community that had ceasefire, it did have, no longer. I'm not here advocating necessarily for ceasefire, but it's a program that identifies obviously where the problem is, and it goes into the projects or into where the issues are and tries to deal with it on a one-on-one basis. But I just don't think you can legislate a solution. It would be done if that could be the case. And I understand every time I pick up the newspaper or or hear the radio or listen or watch television, it's every time there's violence, and just this whole thing out in Colorado Springs. What happened in Omaha? How do you explain this? Who are these people and why? And the root of the problem is the individual. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you legislate that. And I do apologize and sorry for the loss of your sons.
I'm Rick Harnish with the Midwest High-Speed Rail Association. We represent about 800 or 900 people in cities within Illinois that want better train service. And I want to thank you very much for making the case as to why there should be high-quality train service between Decatur and Chicago, so you wouldn't have had to have paid those high parking fees. So thank you. One thing that you've been saying today confuses me, though. You focused on having the users of the transit systems participate in the financial troubles through a fare increase. And I don't know whether I'm for or against that. But, you know, the gas tax hasn't increased since the early 90s, whereas highway construction costs have been skyrocketing. And I'm wondering why we're not talking about having the highway users also participate in the financial problems on the highway side with some sort of motor fuel tax increase.
The motor fuel tax, and coming from where I come, Illinois is one of the highest. I don't know what I'll be, like 7th or 8th in the nation probably in gas tax. I guess if you count the sales tax on it, it would be, if you put the sales tax and gas tax, we're very high. Missouri doesn't have that. It's about 22 cents a gallon difference. Well, you go outside the city. I mean, go outside Cook County. Here's what some of the highest taxes in the country are right here in Cook County. You go outside of the Cook County and see what the difference is. And what happens is, and what we experience in our area is people buy gasoline in the other state. It's just simple as that. And so we have to be concerned and protective of the fact that we don't want to drive that type of work and that type of business out of Illinois. Indiana's the same way. Kentucky, Wisconsin, Iowa all have a lesser cost of taxes on gas taxes than we do. So we have to be very careful with that. And I've supported. In fact, I've supported every capital bill. The previous administrations, I've supported them all because I understand the need for roads, and the sales tax was a part of it. A tax on alcohol was a part of it. A license plate increase was a part of it, and a gas tax was a part of it. And I've been there. I've supported all that. But right now, the only issue that we seem to have right now is gaming, and I'm not so sure that the motoring public feels that they should be involved if you're talking about mass transit. Now, I understand you've done a great job, and there's $160 million, I think, in the bill that passed out of the Senate that's far, Rick, your issues, your concerns. You've done a great job. We've seen the ridership between St. Louis and Chicago, and from Carbondale to Chicago, and the whole train system all over this state has been enhanced by the work that you and your group have done, Rick, and I congratulate you on that. But I don't know. I just don't think that the gas tax is where we ought to be. And I don't believe that we ought to be diverting money. Here we are again talking about diversions that come out of the gas tax or the sales tax, diverting money to mass transit from the sales tax on gasoline in the 6 county area.
Thank you.
Leighton Olson with the law firm of Howe and Hutton. And I wanted to both ask you a question about the whole telecommunications side of things, and then make maybe one suggestion on how you might be able to bring our entire state together. As you probably know, the state of Illinois has designated today as the first annual Jane Addams Day. You don't get out of school, it's not announced in the courts, but I think this is an international event. This is the day in 1931 when Jane Addams received the Nobel Peace Prize, and within that you can not only name highways about it, but perhaps use that bringing together experience. I'd also suggest perhaps in Sparta, Illinois, at the World Shooting Complex, you might be able to bring people together to explore the new meanings for Madison's ideas of factions, perhaps, but also solve some of these kinds of questions that bring northern, central, and southern Illinois together. With that, I'd like to also congratulate you and for helping bring, through CMS and the Illinois Century Network, the school stuff up to 8 megabits per second. I mean, that's a basics for Chicago and other places. To work with the federal government. I'll get to the question after one more thing. Illinois brought in through the federal communications universal service taxes $21 million over 3 years to link Northern Illinois, University of Illinois, Southern Illinois in a rural health infrastructure so we can patch together some federal money. The question is, will you be meeting with the mayor, the governor, and others to bring what we can do as a state to bring the Olympics to Chicago, and what are you doing to help do that?
Wow, I was all over the map here. I was ready for rural health. You know Matt Hunsaker? You know Dr. Hunsaker at the University of Illinois, Rockford? Just met with him last week. The whole issue of rural health and the problems that we have with it. We're trying to expand it outside the medical community, go into dental and pharmacy because of the shortfall of that profession in rural Illinois. He's a wonderful guy and doing good work. Matt Hunsaker. I'm sorry. The question was, the Olympics. Olympics, okay. I attended all of the functions that the mayor has had so far. I think Olympics would be a wonderful thing for Chicago and for this state and for the whole Midwest. When you think about the impact that would have on the Midwest, I'm all for it. I think, and the fact that it would probably do a lot of redevelopment in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area, fine. It's all how we pay for it that will become the contentious part of the program, and I'm not sure where we're going there, but I want to be a part of it. I think it would be an excellent thing for us and would enhance Chicago and Illinois as a destination.
Thank you, because that does involve the federal money under Homeland Security, transportation, ICT, and the other kinds of things. Because if Illinois does not have world-class communication technology, we will not win the Olympics. And that's one place where you can help, bring the healthcare system, because the money's coming in that side. Thank you.
Well, was it Layton? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce Saxon, City Club Board of Governors. I'll be mercifully brief. Just to clarify, are you definitely going to vote for gaming in Chicago? Because you were kind of on the fence about it. Like you really hate it, but you're going to go along if you have to.
We call it hold our nose in Springfield. Probably will. If everything is put together as a package, as we've advocated, most everybody has advocated that a capital bill and mass transit solution need to go together. I know that not everyone agrees with that, but that's kind of where we believe that it ought to happen. And I would say that I voted for the last one. I voted for the one that passed out of the Senate. It wasn't the best bill, but I think we wouldn't be here today talking about the possibility of a solution for mass transit or a capital bill if those of us in our caucus hadn't voted for that, because we moved the ball forward. We just advanced it. We rose the level of intensity to a different level, higher level, by voting for that and passing it out of the Senate. And we kind of created a benchmark. Now maybe we'll end up somewhere less than that, whatever it is. I think it's important that capital be a part of it, and gaming seems to be the solution to that. And I know that that's not necessarily what everybody wants, but I probably would support it, as I did in the bill that passed the Senate. Yes, sir.
Senator Watson, my name is Matthew Malik. I'm a retired Navy pilot and father of 3 teenagers who lost their uncle, Michael Malik McKenna, to gun violence last December 8th. And I know you care about the people of the state. You wouldn't have gone into public office had you not. And you mentioned something about addressing the individual in addressing gun violence. And there are a couple of opportunities I think that we have coming up before us that might address that. I agree with you. People should have the right to form a militia. That's what the Second Amendment was all about. We need to protect ourselves against those sneaky Canadians. We also need to protect ourselves against people that can load up a 30-bullet clip like they did in Omaha, like they did at Virginia Tech, and spray hot lead across a group of people and devastate many, many families at any time of the year. When my brother-in-law was killed last year, the SWAT team took him out as he was reloading. He had barricaded himself in, and he was going to take out as many people as possible. Had he had a 30-bullet clip, there'd be a lot more people dead today. And we're hoping for some common sense legislation. We just passed a law limiting it to 10 bullets. We're trying to go after the less than 1% of gun dealers nationally that account for close to 57% of crime guns. We're trying to limit things like limit purchases of guns to 1 a week. God knows why anybody would need more than 1 gun per week. We'd like to report thefts of guns. Currently, over 500,000 guns are stolen annually. If I was a crack addict and I saw an old VCR and a gun, I'd say, gun, revenue enhancing. transfers of guns between individuals need to be reported. Little things like that. We're not looking to take guns out of people's hands. We're looking to create some common sense. Right now, 30,000 people a year, 30,000 Americans are dying, hundreds of thousands are being injured. I was just hoping you could tell us what you might be willing to get behind as far as common sense legislation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Common sense in the whole issue of gun laws is very difficult to find. You mentioned several issues that we've talked about primarily at the federal level. Well, if anything's going to be done and solve the issues of Omaha and Colorado Springs and wherever else it might be, Virginia Tech, it's got to come from the federal level. It can't come piecemeal state by state, because that doesn't solve it, especially here. If you go over, you've got stringent gun laws right here in Chicago, and you have the major problem. People can go outside the city and purchase wherever they want and probably whatever they need. So I think, first of all, that it does need to originate at the federal level. We did try to tighten up the whole gun show problem. We worked well, probably with your organization and others. I don't know who all was involved in that, but I know there was a multitude of people that sat down and worked out a compromise on gun show problems. And that's I don't know if you're familiar with what a gun show is. It's very prominent down in my area. You go in, they tables just like a dealer's set up, and there was an issue there, and we dealt with that. So I think we're making some progress. The clip issue is another one. I mean, it's just very, very difficult. There's a bright line, and when you cross the bright line to the other side, then that's where the support falls off. So you've got to find, and I've had this conversation with my friends from the NRA and the Illinois Rifle Association and the various groups that are advocates of Second Amendment rights. I've had this conversation is that, that it should be a gray area. There should be some issues that we all can support. They're pretty rigid on their views on this, and they need to kind of back off of that, because I'm not so sure people need a 30 gun clip for 30 rounds of ammunition. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. There's some armor-piercing bullets, those kinds of. I mean, there's a lot of issues out there that I think that maybe some of the people that are advocates of protecting that should take another look. Let's try to work. Let's be reasonable about this. And those kinds of issues aren't necessarily taking the guns out of people's hands. It's just being reasonable, like you said. So I think that's something that needs to be advanced. And I've had that conversation with, like I said, my friends on the other side that. Or on my side, who have a different view than you and your organization.
Any other questions? The moderator. Yes, I do have a question. Thank you. I got to call on me. Last Thursday, your good friend Eva Jones was here, and the moderator asked a general question, in which the Senate President was incredibly supportive. A slight disagreement. And you said the same thing today, a little more measured tone than before. I still can't comprehend why you take an issue like gaming, which has all kinds of ramifications, as a strategic issue, fine, but as a tactical issue, given the fact that mass transit in this region, which does produce 76% of the wealth of the state of Illinois, why you would compound a transit issue with a capital issue that has no money behind it. I mean, the governor is going to be doing the next movie, National Treasure, because he finds money. He's sort of going to take Johnny Depp's place in those pirates. He can find money. There is no money for anything you pass unless you have gaming.
That's right.
Gaming is so controversial, and yet you have a region that's willing to put a sales tax, a small sales tax, on itself that doesn't affect Greenville. And yet you're holding it up because you want a gaming bill.
Well, that's not accurate. Go ahead.
How are you going to fund your capital bill without gaming?
Okay, I thought you were tying it. You tied it to mass transit. I'm not so sure the capital will be the solution for mass transit.
No, but you won't support mass transit unless you have a capital bill. The only way you get a capital bill is you have gaming. Gaming may take 10 years to get. How are you going to deal with an issue of mass transit, which generates in a region 76% of the wealth for the state of Illinois? Your state senators in the Collier County, their school districts get crap from the state for education. Most of that, your school districts had a much higher proportion of their budget from the state. You have the lowest property taxes in the state. You need the money.
And also values. Values are important there, too.
Of course. You don't have much value down there. No disrespect. The money from here is regional welfare. So how in the world are you going to support a game?
This is why I said if I knew he was involved, I wouldn't be here. Don't I agree? Well, all right. He's wonderful. All right. Well, let's talk about that just a second. And this is just kind of hardball politics as what goes on in Springfield. It's just the way it is. We look at this as an opportunity to get a capital program. And that's important, and that's why I say capital ought to be important to the people who support mass transit, because a great deal of the revenue that's coming into capital is going to go to mass transit. So everybody ought to be advocating for it to go together. You don't want to lose $1.7 billion and leave it on the table if a capital bill doesn't pass. But having said that, roads and bridges and school construction, and you have the problem here. This is not unique to Southern Illinois or to downstate Illinois. Is school problems? You have it here. You get 20%. I say you, Chicago Public Schools get 20% right off the top of all the money that goes into the school construction program, which has done a wonderful job. I was a sponsor of that bill during Jim Edgar's term of office, Mark Bozell. When Jim Edgar was in office in 1997, I sponsored a school construction grant, and that'll be my epitaph when I leave this business. And it's on my tombstone, because I think it's important. It helps everybody all over the state. It's not a regional issue. This is a regional issue. Mass transit is a regional issue in light of the solution, not in the benefits of mass transit, because we recognize the importance of the economic, as you said, 76% of the, so we understand that. We recognize that. But here is a window of opportunity for us to get what we've wanted since 1999. We haven't had a capital bill. This governor he's brought capital bills before us in the past. We haven't accepted them because of the trust issue and just the lack of guarantees that the promises will be fulfilled. So this is our opportunity. So my attitude is, okay, mass transit, we're willing to help you. We're willing to work with you. But we've got an issue over here that affects all of us throughout the state, not just one region, and we need your help for that. And I don't think that's unreasonable. And that's the way things get done in Springfield, generally. I mean, when I look back over the history of my involvement since 1979 when I first came in, that's the way things get done. It's something for everybody, not just one part of the state. So if I'm parochial in my views about that, I don't mean to come across that way. I want to help the guys that work for the transportation systems here. I want to help them. But doggone it, everybody has to understand there's other problems throughout Illinois, and it isn't just here.
We could go on, but let's get it.
Thanks, Paul.
Hold. Well done. A mug. The history of the City Club of Chicago. This, by the way, could sell big in Greenville.
It's Tom Rose.
And of course, a one-year membership in the City Club. And by the way, Frank, now that you're in leadership, raising those big bucks, this is the last freebie you get. Next year, you pay up. We are adjourned.